the Prophecy Club. Yesterday in our broadcast, I was attempting to answer a question, and I got interrupted by the time running out at the end of the broadcast. So I want to continue there today. Now, our question we were trying to answer yesterday was, is there oil in Israel? And then after we've answered that question, in the next coming broadcast or two, someplace in there, I plan to get to a bigger question, that is, who is going to find it? And why do we believe that? So let's get to today's question, and that is there oil in Israel? Now, as I said yesterday, and I'm not going to go into it as depth as I did yesterday, but I still want to cover it for those people that didn't hear the broadcast. And by the way, I recommend you go hear it at prophecyclub.com. You can go back and listen to broadcasts going back, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years back. You can listen to all of these, download them to your iPhone, your smartphone, and listen to these past broadcasts. Now, here's what I did. I have a computer program, as probably most of you do, and I push F10 on it, and it brings up either the Greek or the Hebrew. Then I highlight which of the words. In other words, say, for example, an English text may have 15 words in it. Well, in Hebrew, it may be only 5 words or 7 words. Okay, so it highlights those words, and then I push return. It brings up the Hebrew word, the Strong's reference number, and then the different interpretations of that. Okay, now, as we all know, different words have different interpretations. Okay, in other words, like as I said yesterday, the word run, is that what your feet do when they're moving fast? Or is that what your nose does when you have a cold? Or is that what paint does? Okay, run means a lot of different things, okay? This brings up the various possible meanings, and all I've done is select the meaning that most closely fits in with all of the other 30-some-odd verses that I've found that says there's oil in Israel. And we're going to try to see from you listening if you think that these scriptures are really saying that oil is in Israel, or is this just something I'm making up, okay? I've already covered Genesis 49, 22 through 25, so we're not going to go through that again. I'm going to jump on down to the next amazing prophecy. Here's the situation. Moses is about to die. He calls the people of Israel together, and he begins to prophesy to them, and most of it is a slap in the face. Most of it is saying, I know you guys are not going to be faithful to God. I know you're going to turn from him. You're going to make idols. You're going to do. But then he finally gets around to saying something kind. Here's what he says. Deuteronomy 32:12. For the first few verses here, I'm going to read the King James, and then I'm going to read my interpretation. As I said, I go down and I pull up these different words, and I select what I think is the best meaning in light of all of the other scriptures. In other words, if it is talking about oil, okay, and then I put those all down, and then most of the time it's kind of hard to understand, so then I'll move it around. In other words, like sometimes we don't say, for example, to town I go. We say, I'm going to go to town, okay? So I'm going to put those words in a way that I believe you can understand it. Now, and I need to also give a disclaimer, a couple of disclaimers, as a matter of fact. First of all, Revelation says that you get a real big curse if you change one jot or tittle of the Bible. So I'm not trying to change this. I'm not saying my interpretation is Bible. I am saying it is my interpretation. And I believe King James is the inerrant Word of God, and I'm not trying to change that. I only read and preach from King James, so I'm not trying to criticize King James. I also need to give my standard disclaimer so that I don't get thrown in jail over this by trying to say something that's not correct. Nothing I'm saying in this radio program should be deemed an offering of a security or a solicitation for you to buy a security. Any such thing can only be done through a legal prospectus, such as a private placement document approved by the company. My statements are my personal views and opinions. They are not a legal representation or a promise. Any legal relationship, which would include a business relationship or an investment, will only be done through proper legal documents, and this radio program is not one of them. As a matter of fact, if you would like to find out about our vision, I can't discuss that on the radio. You gotta call 877-645-4772 or 877-OIL-ISRAEL. That's 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772, and they will send you out the appropriate documents. I also want to say something more than what my attorney said I needed to read, and that is, I think I have an idea, but I really have to say I cannot say for certain that I know the exact location or the exact depth or that I will ever get the money or that I will ever drill a well or that I will ever hit oil in Israel. Now, there you go. That's the legal part of it. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go to Bible prophecy. Deuteronomy 33:12. This is the King James. And of Benjamin he said, The beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, and the Lord shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. My version sounds like, and of Benjamin, which is Jerusalem. Okay, when you say Benjamin, that's the Jerusalem area. He prophesied, You are the beloved of Jehovah, and you will permanently dwell in a place of refuge, wholly protected, and you are to permanently live between the shoulders. If you look at Jerusalem, you see that Jerusalem is located between two mountain ranges. We believe those are the shoulders. In other words, Benjamin is to permanently reside between those two shoulders. Now let's go to the next verse. King James. And of Joseph he said, Blessed of the Lord be his land. Okay, that's good. That didn't say anything about oil, though. For the precious things of heaven, for the dew, and for the deep that coucheth beneath. What was that part about the deep that coucheth beneath? You got to look up the word coucheth, and when you go back to the Hebrew, I think this will answer it all. This is my version. And of Joseph he prophesied, God will place you on the best land on earth and cause you to eat by a sticky grease product sucked from flint rock. That's what it's talking about, from the deep that coucheth beneath. In other words, it's talking about crude oil that's really deep under pressure. Now let's go to the next verse. For the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon. Okay, well, what is that? That don't have anything to do with oil, does it? Well, okay, here's my version. And it is amazing when you go back into the Hebrew. You see, I don't think that King James is wrong. I think that they did not have the right word, okay? How would you know that there's crude oil underneath the earth back in 1611? They didn't, okay? How would you know that that crude oil is under pressure? How would you know that when you drill into that can squirt over 200 feet in the air, as it did with Spindletop, and took them 9 days to stop the oil squirting out of the ground, okay? They couldn't know that. How can they possibly understand that the Hebrew word, that's what it was really talking about? Here's my version, the way it sounds now. A valuable product causing wealth will shoot forth like a ray gushing from the earth. It will be a valuable produce expelled forth in 1 month. You see, King James says, put forth by the moon. But they didn't exactly understand how to say that, what it was really saying, okay? Verse 15. And for the chief things of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills. So what's that? That didn't say anything about oil. Oh, yes, it did. When you go back into the Hebrew, here's the way I would translate that. And these great blessings will come from the land, creating extreme wealth once concealed in the hills. You see, when it says precious things of the lasting hills, again, it didn't exactly understand how to communicate that this wealth is concealed down deep in the earth. And so it didn't exactly make the trip. Now, let's go to the next verse. Again, I'm not criticizing King James. I'm just seeing that when we go back into the Hebrew, there is more that we can learn and understand. Verse 16, King James, for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, for the good will of him that dwelt in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. I'm only going to read half of my interpretation of this because it reveals a secret I'm not ready to release. I will read the first half of the verse. Now, we're in Deuteronomy 33:16. A valuable product from the earth will cause wealth and double delight and will permanently bless Joseph. Period. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, let's go to the next verse. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. Now, at this point, is only talking about strength. With them, he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and are the thousands of Manasseh. What does that have to do? That doesn't have anything to do with oil, does it? Or does it? Here's my version. Because he is the firstborn, his magnificence will be as strong as a bull with two horns. It says the same thing, but it didn't say the same thing. It's the same words, but it's arranged so you can understand better, I think, what God was really saying. Now, let's continue. He will attack and defeat with his military united as one at the end of time, near the return of Jesus, at the end of the earth, abundance upon abundance, the double portion. Now, we talked about that yesterday. The double portion was the double portion given to the firstborn. All the rest of the children only got one portion, but the firstborn got a double portion, and that was the double portion given to Isaac. And then Esau, all of the Arabs, only got one portion. Means that Israel will have a minimum of twice the amount of oil as do all of the Arabs. Okay? Now, let me read that last part again. Abundance upon abundance. The double portion will be given to Ephraim and Manasseh. Who's Ephraim and Manasseh? Well, I'm not going to go into that deeply, but I'm just simply going to say there are a lot of people believe that Ephraim has to do with the Gentiles. Okay, so some of this wealth apparently is going to be given to the Gentiles. Manasseh has to do with Joseph, and that has to do with the center part of Israel. Now, let's go on. This is a real easy one in King James to understand. Let Asher be blessed with children, we understand. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, yep, we got that. And let him dip his foot in oil. Hey, yeah, we see oil in that one real easy. However, there's something that is, do I say this on the radio? Maybe I won't give all of that, because part of that is a secret I can't give out yet. When I'll tell you this, what I plan to do is to have a PowerPoint presentation all ready to go. I'm going to have our book on oil all ready to go, all ready to print. And then when we get the money, when we actually get the land leased so that someone can't go over and get the land and take it away from us, then I will release the DVD and I will release the book. In other words, I'm not doing the DVD and I'm not doing the book trying to get people to invest in it, because at that time I already have the money whether they invest in it or not. I'm just telling them how we did it, okay? So it's kind of like, how'd you find it? Here's how, okay? Now, this is the part of Deuteronomy 33:24 that I will release. And of Asher he prophesied. Asher will be adored and a celebrated father, a delight to his brothers, because he will walk in crude oil. It's a little bit more plain, but what I didn't tell you is something very big, but it was there, and maybe one of these days I can tell you. And let me just say, this is God's project, okay? I mean, I grew up out in West Texas. I grew up with an oil pump jack going outside of my window, click, click. Click, click. I can still remember it because it was there all the time. It was there when I moved into the house when I was 9 years old. I went back here a couple of years ago. It's still there and it's still pumping. Okay. I grew up out in the oil patch. I never wanted to have anything to do with the oil patch. I had a good friend in high school that died from hydrogen sulfide gas in the oil patch, H2S. It wasn't my idea. Okay, the attorney called me to do this. I didn't call the attorney. I didn't call some attorney and say, hey, can you make me a new corporation for an oil company? He called me and asked me to do this. So this is God's project. When he gets ready to put it together, then he'll put it together. I'm just pleased to be a part and do what he wants me to do. Let's go to the next verse. Verse 25 now. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. So what does that mean? Well, the only way you're going to understand that is you got to look up iron and brass, and you got to read through like about 85 verses as I have, and those verses essentially tell you that when God says it's iron and brass, he is saying that that is your strength. When he makes the heavens iron and the ground brass, he's saying you ain't going to get no rain and you ain't going to get nothing coming out of the ground. When he makes the gates iron and brass, nobody's going to break them. And there was a time when he said he would make finding oil in Israel iron and brass. But this prophecy, talking about the last days, says that Israel's shoes shall be like iron and brass. Now, this is another one of those verses that tells me that Israel will be victorious in World War III because God is going to give them iron and brass shoes. That means that wherever they walk, they are going to walk over it. They are going to be victorious, and they are going to put down nations and not just a few. Okay, now, my interpretation is your shoes will be iron and brass, and your days will be peace. Next verse. There is none like unto the God of Jeshurun. Now, Jeshurun is another word for Israel. Who rideth upon the heaven in thy help, and his excellency on the sky. Now let's go to verse 26, my version. Watch and see that there is no God like Jehovah, the God of Israel, who will place you upon the financial pinnacle in majesty. Keep in mind, brothers and sisters, I'm not just cooking these words up. I'm not just pulling these out of thin air so I can put them there so it sounds good. I am only looking at the Hebrew word and then the different possible meanings. I choose the possible meaning. I put those down in a sentence, and then I put that sentence into English. So this is, I'm not changing anything. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that if you could be here with me, I would be happy. And matter of fact, I have brought people into my office, and I'll say, look, I'm going to push F10. You see, there's Hebrew, there's the Strong's reference number, there's the different meanings. And we'll write that word down, and we write down the 6, 8, 10 Hebrew words for a scripture. Then I've said to people, say, now, if you put those words together in a sentence, what does that mean? Is it not saying the same thing? And they say, yes, what you're doing is correct. I said, that's all I want to know. Okay, now let's go on to the next one. Now we're in 27. The eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the lasting arms, and he shall thrust out the enemy from before thee, and shall say, destroy them. Now, is there anything in that verse that says anything about oil? Not really. I mean, there was something about underneath there, but not really. However, when you go back into the Hebrew, oh yes, there was a lot about oil. Listen. The eternal Elohim is your house of blessing. From underneath, in the concealed deep places, shall come your strength to overthrow your adversaries from your face and allow you to devastate your enemies. Let's read that again. King James is, the eternal God is thy strength, and underneath are the everlasting arms, and he shall thrust out the enemy from before you, and shall say, destroy them. Now, I'm saying the same thing, but I'm not exactly saying the same thing. Now, here's my version. The eternal Elohim is your house of blessing. From underneath you in the concealed deep shall come your strength to overthrow your adversaries from your face and allow you to devastate your enemies. It's saying, from oil down underneath you, I'm going to give you the wealth, the strength to overthrow your adversaries. And I believe that'll happen in World War III. I believe that's going to happen someplace in the ballpark of 2020. I didn't set a date. Okay? Didn't set a date. That's my guess. And I'm entitled to a guess. You got a guess? I got a guess. I can't say it's for sure. Okay? Now let's move on. Verse 28. Israel shall dwell in safety alone. The fountain of Jacob, okay, now we know that Jacob had a well, okay? Is that what it's talking about? Hang on, we're going to get there. The fountain of Jacob shall be upon a land of corn and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. Does that say anything about oil? No. But yes, it does. I'll give you a hint before I get to my version and show you where oil is. I'm going to read it again. You see if you hear oil in it. Israel then shall dwell in safety alone. The fountain of Jacob shall be upon a land of corn and wine. Also his heavens shall drop down dew. It's only 3 basic phrases, okay? Safety, a fountain, and heavens are going to drop down dew. However, when we go back into the Hebrew, this is what it's saying. Now we're at Deuteronomy 33:28. Israel will live in a place of safety, protected by the fountain of Jacob. same thing, okay, we got that. Gathering the earth's increase like grape juice squirted out, the sky shall give drops of blessings. Okay, so Stan, what did you change? Here's the difference. It says like grape juice squirted out. You see, when the oil is really deep, it's really warm. Matter of fact, Hayseed Stevens told me that it was probably about 140 degrees as deep as he wanted to drill, and that's how deep I want to drill too, and under tremendous pressure. You remember the Deep Horizon out in the Gulf was, they said, someplace in the ballpark of 30,000 pounds per square inch. Try to understand. Your tire in your car has about 30 pounds per square inch. This is 30,000 pounds per square inch. So that's tremendous pressure. Spindletop squirted over 200 feet in the air for 9 days. Okay, so it's under tremendous pressure, and squeezing a grape and getting the juice to squirt out is a good analogy. And it says that in the Hebrew. But again, King James guys back in 1611, they didn't understand how to communicate that. Then the next says, the sky shall give drops of blessings. Well, it says, and also his heaven shall drop down dew. It didn't understand how to say that when you've got a gusher, when you've got oil squirting 200 feet in the air, that's like 20 stories high. Okay, that's really high. It falls back to the earth like rain. That's the sky giving back drops of blessings. King James didn't know how to communicate that, didn't understand. How could it possibly have written? But that's what the Hebrew says. Let me read that verse. This is my version, that verse again. Israel will live in a place of safety. Why? The verse before just told us that the strength coming from deep in the earth is going to give them the wealth to overcome their adversaries. Okay, it just told us that. So now we know you'll live in a place of safety. I believe that's going to be after World War III, and protected by the fountain of Jacob. Now, there's a difference between a well of Jacob and a fountain of Jacob. I believe it's talking about a gusher of Jacob, a oil well under pressure that can squirt oil, 200 feet in the air, 100 feet in the air, whatever. Gathering the earth's increase like a grape juice squirted out, the sky shall give drops of blessings. Let me just tell you, brothers and sisters, you own an oil well, or you're part of owning an oil well, and you're standing underneath that oil well, and all of those drops from that gusher are falling down on you. One person might say, yuck, now I got to take a shower. Oh, this is making me all dirty. But to a person that understands, that is wealth. That is your ship has come in. That is more blessing, more money than you're going to probably spend in your lifetime. That means millions of dollars coming in the hands of Christians, thousands of dollars coming into each household. That means Christians around the globe can now have the money to get the radio, the TV, to fix up their churches, to win souls. Remember, Daniel says, and they will be hoping with a little help. Could that be what it's talking about? Okay. Now, we're running out of time here. Let me go on to the next verse here real quick. Verse 29, Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by the Lord, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency? And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. Did I hear oil any place in there? Not really. I heard peace, I heard blessings, but not really oil. Here's my version. Be happy, Israel. Who is as blessed as you? You are a nation who received Jehovah's shield and protection. Who is the strength of your sword? You shall tread down your adversaries and liars who try to run over you. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters. You see, if you read all of those verses together, and of Asher he prophesied, Asher would be adored and a celebrated father, a delight to his brothers because he will walk in crude oil. Your shoes will be iron and brass, and your days will be peace. Watch and see that there is no God like Jehovah, the God of Israel, who will place you upon the financial pinnacle in majesty. The eternal Elohim is your house of blessing. From underneath you, in the concealed deep, shall come your strength to overthrow your adversaries from your face and allow you to devastate your enemies. Israel will live in a place of safety, and protected by the fountain of Jacob, gathering the earth's increase like grape juice squirted out. The sky shall give drops of blessings. Be happy, Israel. Who is as blessed as you? You are a nation who received Jehovah's shield and protection. Who is the strength of your sword? Who shall tread down your adversaries and liars? Who try to run over you? Brothers and sisters, is that talking about oil in Israel, or is that talking about oil in Israel? You see? And it's going to come in the last days. Now, in my opinion, I believe it's going to be just before World War III, and I believe World War III is just about to begin. And I still think we got another 20, 30 years before Jesus returns, okay? Israel's going to get back all of the land. There's so many. Jesus is not coming yet. He's not coming soon. He's still got some years. We just don't understand, okay? But if you'd like to be a part of the vision, if you'd like to know about that vision, then you call 877-OIL-ISRAEL, which is 877-645-4772. And you can also download the information from propheticoil.com. That's propheticoil.com. You can also get the DVDs from the Prophecy Club, all three of them, Prophecies of Oil in Israel, More Prophecies of Oil in Israel, and Asher's Secret Prophecies of Oil in Israel, all from the Prophecy Club, prophecyclub.com, or 785-266-1112. Getting close to Christmas, so let me say Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers and your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. The next speaker at the Prophecy Club is Augusto Perez. Pastor Perez has had 44 dreams and visions and several angel visits, showing him some amazing things about the future of America. He will share as many of these dreams and visions as possible from 7 to 10:30 Saturday, January the 5th at the Prophecy Club, 2540 Avenue K in Plano. Topics are the Great Shaking, the vision of the 3 stars, the coming famine, the glory cloud, the double portion outpouring, the coming attack on the U.S., the great darkness, the super devaluation of the dollar, the appearance of a celestial body, and much more. Order the DVD End of Times at prophecyclub.com. That's Augusto Perez, Saturday, January 5th at the Prophecy Club, 2540 Avenue K in Plano, corner of Park and K behind the Whataburger. Gift of $10 at the door. Doors open at 6, speaking from 7 to 10:30. See you there! The next speaker at the Prophecy Club has been teaching Bible prophecy for over 20 years, made 27 DVDs. He'll speak on Daniel verse by verse, using 441 slides, 350 pictures, 53 maps, and 18 charts. You will better understand Daniel, and I'm talking about myself, Stan Johnson. I will answer questions such as, have the sorrows begun? What bloodline, empire, and region does the Antichrist come from? How can we recognize the Antichrist? How does the Antichrist gain control? What does he do? Who is the leopard? And what are the 9 signs of Jesus' return? 8 hours, 4 widescreen DVDs, a gift of $75 or upgrade for $30. Find out about it at prophecyclub.com or call 785-266-1112. That's Daniel verse by verse, speaking Friday, January 4th, 7 to 10:30, Saturday the 5th, 9 to noon, 2 to 5, Sunday from 9:30 a.m. to 10:15 at the Prophecy Club, 2540 K Avenue in Plano, on the corner of Park and K behind the Whataburger. Gift of $10 at the door or $20 for all the Daniel talks. See you there! If you would like to find out more about our vision to find oil in Israel, call 877-645-4772. That's 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772. That's 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772. There's no obligation. They'll send you out a free packet explaining our vision.